New Zealand Deputy Prime Minister David Seymour, thank you very much for your time.
Hey, good to see you, Chris.
Good to see you too. First of all, I've got to ask, do you find it quite odd that the Green Party hasn't released a statement on the peace deal brokered by Donald Trump, given their strong interest in Gaza? I mean, I was looking across all their social media pages this morning and no acknowledgement, nothing to tell the audience that they've been concerned about this, that there is some kind of deal potentially on the way.
I find that really extraordinary. I've talked a lot about compassion for people suffering, and I think we all should and have. What appears to be happening, as I've said, I hope is the start of a long and stable peace where hostages get released, number one. Number two, aid starts to flow to people who have been suffering. There's no doubt about that. And three, that there can be rebuilding. And I don't just mean physically rebuilding Gaza, I mean building a state that is democratic or at the very least stable and not a terrorist state without Hamas being involved. So if that can be achieved, then that is enormous. And you'd have to give credit to President Trump for his role in it. You'd also have to observe that the United States did not recognize Palestine, the same as New Zealand. Our government has not recognized Palestine, and it really makes a mockery of the idea that recognition was going to do the deal. Recognition didn't help. The country that has made it happen didn't recognize Palestine either. So altogether, I think this is a bit embarrassing for the likes of the Greens, and frankly, they need to ask themselves, has all their misbehaviour, particularly the attacks on Winston Peters' house, that they can't separate themselves from, because they've always blamed politicians for anything that anyone does. Is all of that worth it? They really need to take a good hard look at themselves, in my view.
To issues local issues now, I suppose you could say, to our home here in New Zealand, the Speaker is investigating, or so he says, the unauthorised haka following Kaiputa's maiden speech, where he was forced to suspend Parliament again. Do you believe Tea Party Māori has shown disrespect for Parliament's rules again, or should there be consequences if this was organised by the party?
Well, it's not just disrespect for Parliament's rules. It's disrespect for the, voters. It's disrespect for the people who send a representative to speak for them in Parliament. You see, the thing is, Parliament has a speaker to uphold rules to protect the right of MPs to speak on the right of voters. And if you break those rules, if you take away Parliament's time, if you prevent someone else from having their say, what you're really doing is taking away the voice of the people who voted for them. And there is nobody in this country, whether they're another MP or whether they are some mob in the parliamentary gallery, who has a right to take away other people's voice in our democracy. The whole idea that we each have equal dignity, equal rights, and equal and proportionate say in the future of our country. Parliament and its rules embody that. You break those rules, not about me, not about Parliament, not about the rules, not about the Speaker. It's about the voice of the people that all of those things are set up to represent.
You know what some of the critics have said. In fact, I think you even fired back at some of them on social media last night when they said, oh, this is just you being racist because you don't like New Zealand culture.
Well, again, I am someone who, since I was 5 years old, has been speaking Māori, singing Māori songs, doing haka at school. I mean, it's part of my life too. But I seem to have somehow managed to understand the institution I work at and the value of a Westminster Parliament and of parliamentary democracy in giving each person a say so that the direction of our country can be guided by the aspirations of the people that live in it. I mean, this is a very special thing. Only 7 countries managed to be democratic for the entire 20th century. Freedom House, Washington think tank, who've been measuring the amount of democracy in the world since 1945, I think. They have just said for the first time in decades, there are more authoritarian countries than democratic countries. These guys, you can have your views on Māori culture. It's been part of my life as long as I've been around. But that's quite different from understanding what's at stake here in the world and the value and the workings of a free and democratic society.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but I can't help myself. One News failed to mention the suspension of Parliament last night, which I thought was a glaring omission. And despite releasing a report a month ago claiming the organisation doesn't involve itself in bias at all, and it's a balanced organisation when it comes to its news values, but doesn't this omission prove the very point people have been making?
Again, this is why people are losing faith in institutions. When people disrupt the parliament from doing its business, disrupt the voice of New Zealanders, that is foundational to our country's prosperity and future. There isn't much that's bigger than that. Are we a parliamentary democracy that functions or not? Can the Speaker of the House maintain order in the Parliament or not? These are critical issues. And yet, One News, for whatever reason, are completely incapable of reflecting what matters most to New Zealanders. I just don't know where to start with those guys. As a government, we can change out the board members. We're doing that. We cannot interfere in their editorial independence, and nor should any politician seek to do that. But you do have to wonder, what is the point of these guys? Why can't they report the news as is relevant? They've got 3 people stationed at Parliament to report what's going on. They've got cameras. They've got a live feed through to the 6 o'clock news. How hard can it be?
One thing they did actually report on, and I was quite surprised about this, is Debbie Nauriua-Paka was about to answer a media question about allegations of a dictatorship, but Rawiri Waititi physically pulled her away before she could respond to that line of questioning. Do you see the irony in that?
Look, to be really honest, I don't watch One News, so I'm just going by a text summary I received and, listening to what you're telling me. Look, one of the more amusing things I saw yesterday was someone said, if you look at the Maori Party caucus all together, they look awfully like the Addams family, and I couldn't help. Sometimes you just have to laugh at these people.
37 protesters were arrested in Christchurch this week outside the Christchurch Convention Centre. In your view, did they cross the line from lawful protest to deliberate disruption?
Yeah, it sounds like, I'm not going to make a comment on the law because that's the courts have got to decide if someone's broken the law or not. But
Sure.
I just make the point that, politics is the art of persuasion. It's about winning hearts, minds, and votes. It's actually not about winning arguments or beating people up or disrupting them or making other people feel small. You do all those things, you actually won't get the outcome you want, which is support for you as the representative of others. So I would ask these guys, I would challenge them, I'd say, what have you really achieved here, folks? I mean, you haven't disrupted the global military industrial complex, if that's what you think you're doing. It carries on. But there's a whole lot of people who might have thought you've got a point, who actually are just going to sit there now and say, you guys are all crazy. And I give another example. About 3 weeks ago, I was hosting a meeting in Mount Eden as the local member of Parliament about changes to the land use planning in the city, which people are very concerned about this, and it's an important topic to a lot of people. So there's these Palestine protesters outside, and they're all banging drums and waving flags and yelling and shouting, trying to make it impossible for people inside to hear the meeting. Now, they failed at that because we have great sound gear. But if they had just stood there quietly, handed out flyers saying, this is why we're here, these are our concerns, we believe you should pay some attention to this too, and here's a QR code or a link where you could find out more, they probably would have actually won a few people over to their cause. They probably would have helped win some hearts, minds, and votes. But instead, I suspect that a whole lot of people at that meeting just thought, these guys are nuts, they're uncivil, they're rude, they're self-righteous. We don't want anything to do with their cause. So that's what I'd say to them.
The government says it's reducing the use of contractors and consultants, and it will save possibly taxpayers $915 million a year. You've said, and I quote, a straight line, this is a straight line from the government saving money to households having more. But how do you see these savings benefiting everyday New Zealand households?
Well, I mean, first of all, it was $915 million since we came into government, so roughly 2 years' worth. In terms of how does this benefit people, basically, if you look at how we got inflation, and I'm not here to bag the other guys, I just want to lay out the economic lesson that they showed us. They spent a lot of money on things that didn't actually deliver. So the classic example was the $50 million that they put into designing a bike bridge over the Auckland Harbour. Now, the bike bridge was never built. The $50 million did go out and it was spent. So that was extra money and borrowed money from the government that was circulating in the economy, but there was no extra thing to buy. There was no extra bike bridge to ride across. And that's how you get too much money chasing too few goods. That's inflation. That's where you get interest rates. That's where you get, a recession. That's where people lose their jobs. None of this is good. By us stopping these contractors and consultants, and the bike bridge would be a perfect example, we have taken that inflationary pressure off. That in turn takes interest rate pressure off. That means that people now are paying less on their mortgages, and that means that people are either charging less rent if they're landlords or have more money to spend if they're homeowners. Either way, there's more money for other things in the economy. So that's our straight line from reducing contractor and consultant spending to economic recovery.
Okay, I hope so. Just a few final questions, Deputy Prime Minister. Story that we had on our platform earlier this week. The Green Party member, I hate to almost bring it up really, co-leader Marama Davidson stopped short of apologising to you after she reshared a social media post from an activist lawyer suggesting it would be hard not to punch you or Winston Peters. I just think if this was you saying that on your social media feeds, there would be One News will be calling for your resignation.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, we all know that there's a massive double standard going on. These guys don't behave the same. I mean, let's give an example. About 5 years ago, I was in a radio interview and they asked me about Golriz Ghahraman and her comments on free speech. I said she's a menace to free speech. She said that she was now being harassed and threatened and it was all my fault. The whole thing was totally ridiculous, but it was like a front page story and about how terrible I was, and it was all crazy. And yet they were quite happy to run that line as the Green Party. Now, you've got one of the leaders of a mob that resulted in smashing a politician's window, ironically in Chloe Swarbrick's electorate. I mean, you're worried about crime in Auckland Central. I mean, look what the local MP encourages. So then you say, okay, where's their accountability for this, and how do you contrast that with things that they've said in the past? I mean, they're just it's a total double standard. But I think people are slowly working the Greens out. What do these guys really stand for? They say they stand for the children in Gaza. Great. Well, where's the celebration that there might actually be some relief for those children? Can't hear it because that was never their real issue.
Just finally, and it brings me to the other point about misinformation. I even hate using that word because it's been hijacked by some on the far left. But are you concerned about how some people have been drawing comparisons between the deliberate vandalism at Winston Peters' personal home and the false claim made by a Māori Party MP who said her house had been ram-raided, something that police confirmed to me never happened in the way that she explained it to the television cameras? Do you think those kinds of comparisons risk undermining genuine victims of crime and fueling political misinformation? I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, this whole misinformation thing, I mean, it's become a politically charged term.
Yeah, it has. I hate using it.
We need to have rational discussion based on things you can physically observe and then create theories about how to explain your observations, and then draw a straight line from your observations of the physical world to the way that you understand it and the conclusions you come to. In other words, the scientific method, empirical observation, deductive reasoning. If we can't do that, then we can't solve problems, which really is what we need in this country, because all of life is ultimately problem solving. I was talking to a very successful business person from Australia just the other day, and they said, look, business is just a series of problems to solve it. And this guy's solved a lot of problems. He's made a lot of money solving problems, so he might know a thing or two. I think we need to just step back and say, okay, what are the facts here? I mean, was her house ram-raided? Well, no. I mean, nobody has observed a car going into this person's house. That did not happen. Was there any sort of home invasion? Apparently not. Was there any physical damage to the house? Well, in the case of Winston Peters' house, we can quite clearly see that. Unless there's been some huge conspiracy, then yes, somebody did put a crowbar through his window, shatter glass on his dog, and then turn themselves into the police station 2 days later. All of that actually happened. That's what it looks like to have a discussion based on empirical observation of the real world, deductive reasoning to factual conclusions. That's the kind of level of discussion we need to have. But too often, all you get is just fudge.
Yeah, and when you are trying to make an argument that's based in the first place on a lie, it's hard to have a genuine conversation, isn't it? But we're out of time. Deputy Prime Minister David Seymour, nice to speak with you. Thank you so much
You
for your
too,
time.
Chris.
Have a nice weekend.
You too. Bye.